Hey guys, Matt here. We're starting off 2024 with a weird one because I cannot wrap my head around what the fuck is going on with today's game, Palworld. Suddenly here's this completely new IP by a developer that is so unknown that they don't even have their own Wikipedia page, and the only thing I kept hearing about it online was it's Pokemon but with guns. It's Breath of the Wild but with survival mechanics. It's Minecraft but it looks like Fortnite. Quite the big statement for a game that supposedly does everything at once, while being made with just a fraction of a AAA title's budget. And if I have to be honest, when I saw it for the first time, I was like, get that cheap rip-off looking AI generated Unreal Engine bullshit out of my face. $30 my ass, it's not even worth half that. But then I played it and damn it, it's actually good, and I mean really good. But I'm still conflicted. I mean, come on, look at it. Something's just not right here. So I guess everyone here is excited to hear if this game is either serious Game of the Year material or the biggest scam in recent video game memory. So without wasting any more time, here's some gameplay and my first impressions on Palworld. It's not completely incomprehensible why people immediately saw similarities between Palworld and many other games. But because it flew completely under the radar for me, I had to do some research before buying it. And after finding developer Pocket Pair's previous outing, Craftopia, it became painfully clear how much quote-unquote inspiration these people were taking from other games. Just looking at Craftopia's trailer, this is basically just Breath of the Wild here. That's just the same glider. This is basically Link, and you cannot tell me that these enemies right here aren't anything other than moblins. So why am I talking about Craftopia instead of Palworld? Well, because they're basically the same game in many ways. Even a quick glance at the open world shown in both the game's trailers makes you think that you're basically just seeing the same thing, but most of all, Palworld is now facing the exact same criticisms as Craftopia. And that becomes apparent from the very moment you start the game. That might sound negative, but I was determined to give this game a chance and look at the positives as well. And so I'm going to start by saying that the game has a decent character creator, is richly filled with all sorts of different mechanics that are pretty easy to get the hang of, and it arguably looks good if you like that Unreal Engine cartoony art style I can only describe as Fortnite. Many people who are familiar with survival games will feel right at home. Exploring the world, gathering resources, building a home and crafting new weapons and gear works just as well here as it does in games like Minecraft, Valheim or Rust. So expect it to work as intended, but don't expect anything revolutionary. It's everything you already know about this genre and nothing more. For the less experienced people, the game does some hand-holding by giving you the opportunity to follow a tutorial, but nothing is mandatory. You're basically free to go wherever you want from the moment you enter the world. In my case, that meant not really knowing what I was supposed to do, running after a bipedal cat, and accidentally punching some animals to death. So as you'll start exploring, you yet again see and feel the resemblances to Breath of the Wild and its sequel. The stamina system works the same, climbing works the same, and if you squint, you're basically just looking at Hyrule. I mean, just look at and listen to what happens when you enter an area. While more typical open world things like dungeon crawling, attacking encampments and fighting monsters are definitely not exclusive to Zelda, you can see how this only magnifies the comparisons to the two most recent Zelda releases and why I'm comparing it to that instead of anything else. In that sense, it is just nice to see that all those aspects, as cliché as they might be in this genre, are also in Palworld. With my first resources, I pretty quickly set up a small hut. Again, nothing new here. You get all the tools and components in order to make something you like, and everything works basically exactly the same as in Valheim or Fallout 4, in which structural pieces snap together like Lego pieces, in very ironic contrast to Lego Fortnite, where nothing snaps together in the way that I want. Just like in Valheim, the game isn't very strict about overlap or clipping, so you don't have to be overly precise with what gets placed where. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised with how well this system works, and I quite quickly started expanding my settlement. But not before doing the one thing that no one is able to shut up about. The undeniable show stealers of Palworld have to be the the bells. All of your favorites are here. Regional Goodra, Regional Lycanroc, Regional Inkay, Regional... well, you get it. Yes, the creatures and catching mechanics are incredibly, shamelessly exactly the same as Pokemon. Or to be more precise, Legends Arceus and the most recent releases Scarlet and Violet. Sure, Pokemon doesn't allow me to beat a chicken within an inch of his life, but we've had that opportunity already in Ark Survival Evolved, which also bears an insane amount of resemblances to Palworld. But the catching, the naming, the caretaking and the eventual battling are definitely just carbon copies of Pokemon, and there's no denying that. But is anyone bothered about that? Well, if the internet is to be believed, no, because we're not going to feel bad for the most profitable franchise in history, but to be fair, people online will always find something to complain about. It's why I made this YouTube channel. But it might come as a surprise that people aren't necessarily bothered by a game if the gameplay is really good and actually fun. I know, shocking. It all works so smoothly and the fighting doesn't get interrupted by anything. You can literally run through an open field, beat some harmless animals to pulp and capture them all while gather resources, doing some emotes for shits and giggles and giving your own pal some much needed love. After catching them, simply take them home with you and enjoy your quiet little life together. So after a few hours of gameplay, I was positively surprised about Palworld, but nowhere near as hyped as some of the people I've seen online, saying it was this incredible mashup of many different gameplay elements intertwined with each other. But to me, it didn't really feel like that. It felt like a game copying a lot of different games I've already played, and it felt more like these gameplay elements were all just dumped into one game to exist alongside each other. But then something funny happened. This funny looking guy grabbed a hammer and started working for me. Apart from the fact that it was really funny, it caught me off guard in the best way possible. And then he started gathering stone for me. And before I knew it, this blob was planting seeds, this penguin here was watering them, some monkey started gathering the berries that grew there, and my sheep put it into my storage boxes. No longer were all these different gameplay elements existing alongside each other, but everything started to connect. I made a special team that would go on journeys with me, consisting of my most powerful pals. The weaker but more versatile ones stayed at home and worked for me, and it basically became a labor camp. But everyone worked really hard and had an incredible time, except for the ones that got depressed and had eating disorders. But I did everything in my power to ignore those, and they either died or I ate them, so it all worked itself out. My small hut became a settlement, my world map grew larger, and my attackers became a well-organized, overpowered, boss battle-winning, berry-eating machine. The once fearful and hostile creatures now embrace their almighty captor and love me for it. After 10 or so hours with this game, there is only one way to describe this beautiful combination of circumstances. Stockholm Syndrome. But also great f***ing gameplay. And all of that happened before any of my pals were even able to get their hands on guns. So just imagine the chaos that is still waiting for me. I'm not even sure if this insanely satirical visualization of the creature catching genre was made like this intentionally, but my god, I'm here for it. In the brief time that I had with Palworld, I went from absolutely despising it to loving it. There's a reason why I named so many other games in this video, because it's important to note that many of the gameplay elements in this game are just completely and quite shamelessly copied from games that came before. And I do mean copied, because the way that things like the climbing, creature catching and crafting are presented here go much further than just taking inspiration. Why I still remain positive about Palworld, however, is because they really made all of these things their own by making sure that the creatures are front and center and pull all of those gameplay elements together. Seeing the amount of animations put into each and every one of them, the way they help you in your settlement, the way they explore the world with you and battle other creatures, etc. That's what makes Palworld feel so alive and what makes it stand out in between all the titles I mentioned in the video. It is no surprise then that people immediately look towards the multi-billion-dollar elephant in the room and say, "Hey Game Freak, I thought you said it wasn't possible to make Pokemon behave like this and let it all run smoothly in an open world." Now, to play the devil's advocate real quick, do keep in mind that Pokemon games often have 4 times the amount of creatures, if not more, and it has to run on the way less powerful Nintendo Switch. But in my opinion, that only emphasizes the fact that Pokemon, and to a certain degree Nintendo, are years behind in some aspects. I've already talked about this exact lack of liveliness in my Pokemon Sword and Shield review, but I would never have thought that the solutions would come in the form of a relatively unknown, overly satirical indie title that costs half the price of a new Pokemon game. Despite the praise I'm giving Palworld for the things it does do well, I don't want to end this video before talking one last time about why I do think that all the blatant copying is the biggest concern to me. I can always appreciate a game taking inspiration from many different games that came before and making something new and interesting out of it. Palworld does exactly this in the way that it combines all of these mechanics. Sure, we've seen all of them before in other games, but have you ever heard about the game that combines Ark, Valheim, Breath of the Wild and Pokemon all in one? What I absolutely don't appreciate, however, is directly copying mechanics, designing your creatures in a way that they're just different enough to not be completely the same, and trying your very hardest to look like another game instead of creating your own identity. Palworld could, in my opinion, have been even better if it didn't look like a cheap knockoff of Zelda and Pokemon. With its almost record-breaking 2 million concurrent players on Steam right now, it has the potential to become the forerunner of many games that will try a similar thing. Hopefully that means that other indie developers will also try to innovate within this genre. But what if it means that after Palworld people just think it's okay to copy others as long as you change just enough? A pretty bleak future for an otherwise incredibly enjoyable video game. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and let me know what you think of Palworld in the comments. Are you just enjoying the game, or are you also maybe concerned about all the things it's copying? I'd love to know your opinion on it. I also want to thank the returning people. For me, 2024 started by reaching 600 subscribers, and of course I'm incredibly grateful for that. If you're new here, consider subscribing as well. I would really appreciate that. But for now, I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!